Kaladin stepped directly into the pursuer's path and dropped his spear. The creature had acted as he had each time before, dropping a husk and streaking toward Kaladin to grapple him.
That's one husk spent.
Turning at the last moment, Kaladin caught the pursuer's hands as they reached for him. Thrumming with Stormlight, Kaladin held the pursuer's wrists. The creature was stronger than he was, but he only had to give Teft and Lift enough space to work. And Kaladin had discovered something during their last fight. The pursuer was not a soldier.
Give in, little man. I am as unavoidable as the coming storm. I will chase you forever.
Good.
Bravado!
The pursuer managed to hook Kaladin's foot, then used his superior strength to shove Kaladin to the ground. The best Kaladin could do was hang on and pull him down as well. The pursuer kneed Kaladin in the gut, then twisted to get him in a hold.
So foolish!
Kaladin writhed, barely able to keep from being immobilized. Syl flittered around them. As the pursuer tried for a lock, Kaladin twisted around and met the pursuer's eyes, then smiled. The pursuer repositioned to press Kaladin against the ground by his shoulders.
I'm not afraid of you, but you're going to be afraid of me.
Madness. Your inevitable fate has caused madness in your frail mind.
Kaladin used both hands to push the pursuer's right hand away. Kaladin kept his eyes locked onto the pursuer's.
I killed you, and I'll kill you now. Then every time you return for me, I'll kill you again.
I am immortal.
Doesn't matter. I've heard what people say about you. Your life isn't the blood in your veins, but the legend you live. Each death kills that legend a little more. Each time I defeat you, it will rip you apart. Until you're no longer known as the pursuer. You'll be known as the defeated. The creature who, no matter how hard he tries, can't ever beat me.
Kaladin reached down and activated Navani's device at his belt, then pressed the grip that dropped the weight. He was pulled out of the pursuer's grip, sliding across the floor of the atrium. He deactivated the device, then rolled to his feet, looking across the short distance at his enemy. Syl fell in beside him, glaring at the pursuer in a perfect mimic of Kaladin's posture. Then, together, they smiled as Kaladin pulled out his scalpel. Moash kicked Lift toward the wall, sending her limp and tumbling. She lay still and didn't move after that. Moash floated forward, blade out, attention affixed solely on Teft. Teft cursed himself for a fool. He'd focused on taking care of the regal at the door. He should have known to check for irregularities. Now that he looked, he could see Cal's parents and brother bound and gagged, visible through a gap in the cloth of the draped-off section at the rear. The real trap wasn't outside with the pursuer. It was in here, with a much deadlier foe, a man who had been trained for war by Kaladin himself. Moash landed in front of the rows of unconscious people on the floor.
Hello, Teft. How are the men?
Safe from you.
Teft pushed aside his cloak and unsheathed the long knife he had hidden underneath.
Not all of them, Teft.
There was a shadow on Moash's face, despite the room's many lit spheres. He lunged forward, and Teft danced back, stepping carefully over the body of the unconscious regal. He had space here in front of the door with no fallen radiance to upset his footing. Moash opened his sack and threw something out across the floor nearby.
Black sand? What on Roshar?
Teft held out his weapon, Fenderana at his side, but the knife seemed tiny compared to Moash's weapon, the assassin's honor blade, the one that had killed old Gavilar. It looked wicked in Moash's hand, shorter than most blades, but in a lithe, deliberate way. This wasn't a weapon for slaying great monsters of stone. It was a weapon for killing men.
Humans are a poem, a song.
Musings of El, on the first of the final 10 days.
Hey, what are you doing?
Rlain turned, shifting the small barrel of water from one shoulder to the other. David pulled in close to him, frightened at the challenge. The two of them were in a nondescript passage of Yorathiru, close to the steps down to the basement. This was the last guard post, and Rlain thought they had made it past.
We're delivering water.
He wore makeup covering his tattoo, blending it into his skin pattern.
To the scholars.
Why are you doing it?
The guard walked over and put a hand on Rlain's shoulder.
Let the human do that kind of work, friend. You are meant for greater things.
Rlain glanced at Dabbid, who looked at the ground. This wasn't the kind of resistance he'd anticipated.
It's my job.
Who assigned Axehound's work to a singer? Come with me. You strike an imposing figure in war form. I'll teach you the sword. We're recruiting for our squad.
I would rather do what I'm supposed to.
Rlain pulled free, and thankfully she let him go. He and Dabbid continued along the hallway as she walked back to her workmates.
Can you believe it? How can so many keep thinking like slaves? It's sad.
Yeah, I wouldn't expect it of that one most of all, considering.
Rlain attuned anxiety.
That one?
Yeah, he's that listener, isn't he? The one that was in prison until Raboniel's voice pulled him out?
Rlain walked a little quicker, but it was no use.
Damnation.
The guard grabbed him by the elbow.
Wait now. You're the listener?
I am?
Delivering water. You, a traitor.
Rlain attuned determination and turned around.
We are not traitors. Venli is Raboniel's voice.
Yeah, well, you're not going down with the human queenies. Not until I get confirmation that you're allowed. Come with me.
Dabbid pulled in closer to Rlain, trembling. Rlain looked toward the Singer guards. 4 of them. He wasn't going to fight them, and not only because of the numbers.
Fine. Let ask your superior so I can get on with my duty.
They pulled him away. Dabbid followed as they were led, step by step, farther from their goal. Well, if the sibling wanted him down there for some reason, they'd have to find a way to get him out of this. The pursuer lunged for Kaladin. Kaladin activated Navani's device, which was still attached to his belt, that tugged Kaladin backward faster than a man could leap, and so he stayed out of the pursuer's grip. By this point, the Singers had cleared most of the atrium of civilians. They'd lined the walls with soldiers, but not the flat side of the room with a window. The crowds continued to watch from the hallways and the balconies, trusting in Kaladin. Heavenly ones hovered above the circular chamber, as if to judge the contest. In effect, it was an arena. Kaladin projected as much strength and confidence as he could. He almost started to feel it, the worn-out, weathered fatigue retreating.
I needed this bastard to believe, to understand, that he has far more to lose from this contest than I do.
And the pursuer seemed to, for the creature ejected his second body and shot toward Kaladin as a ribbon. He wanted to end this battle quickly. The window had darkened from the approaching storm wall, which announced the high storm. It hit with a fury, and spheres became the room's only source of light. Kaladin seized the fuse out of the air as he formed. They clashed again.
That's his third body.
If he ejected this time, he'd have to go recharge, or risk forming a fourth body and being killed. They went to ground again, rolling as they wrestled, Kaladin trying to maneuver his knife. The pursuer could heal with void light, but the more of that he lost, the more likely he'd have to retreat. This time the creature offered no taunts as he tried to get a grip on Kaladin's head, likely to smash it into the ground, as he knew Kaladin's healing wasn't working properly. That gave Kaladin a chance to stab upward, forcing the pursuer to grab his arm instead.
You're no soldier!
Kaladin's voice was heard by all of those listening.
That's what I realized about you, defeated one! You've never faced death! Silence!
The pursuer twisted Kaladin's wrist. Kaladin rolled them both to the side, narrowly protecting his wrist from serious damage. He dropped the knife. Fortunately, he had found others.
I faced it every day of my life!
Kaladin rolled on top of the fused.
You wonder why I don't fear you? I've lived with the knowledge that death is hounding me. You're nothing new. Be quiet! But I'm something you have never known.
He slammed the pursuer down by his shoulders.
Thousands of years of life can't prepare you for something you've never met before, defeated one. It can't prepare you for someone who does not fear you!
Kaladin pulled out his boot knife and raised it. The pursuer, seeing that coming, didn't do what he should have. He didn't try to grapple or knee Kaladin's stomach. He panicked and shot away as a ribbon of light, fleeing. He materialized a short distance away in front of the watching soldiers.
His fourth body. His last one. The one he's vulnerable in.
The pursuer turned to look back at Kaladin, now standing atop his husk.
I am death itself, defeated one! And I finally caught up to you!
Venli found a mob of people blocking the central corridor as she tried to reach the atrium. She attuned anxiety and pushed through the press. Since she was a regal, people did make way. Eventually, she reached the front of the crowd, where a group of warforms stood in a line, blocking the way forward.
Rlain and his friends have already begun the rescue plan. I'm too late.
Venli craned her neck, tall enough to see that the room was being guarded by about 100 of the pursuer's troops, though she also saw some of Raboniel's personal guard, which he'd picked up from Leshwi. Venli attuned the terrors.
What now? Can I help?
She found, as she searched, that she genuinely wanted to, not because Timber was pushing her, and not because this was merely the path she was on, but because of the songs of the stones and the whispers of those who had come before her.
I'm the voice of the Lady of Wishes. You think that your blockade applies to me? Step aside.
Reluctantly, the soldiers made way for her. She couldn't help but pause. There was something about the way Stormblessed fought. Even grappling with the pursuer, rolling across the ground, there was a certain determination to him. He freed himself from the grapple, and somehow leapt back 20 feet. Though his powers shouldn't have been working that well. The pursuer became a ribbon and chased him, but Stormblessed didn't run. He reached out and seized the pursuer right as he appeared.
Fascinating.
Venli could see why Leshwi found the human so interesting. There was nothing Venli could do about this battle. She had to think about Rlain and Liren and his family. She searched the air and located Leshwi hovering nearby. Venli made her way over to Leshwi as Stormblessed stood tall atop the pursuer's husk. The lady floated down. She would not interfere in a duel such as this.
This looks bad for Stormblessed.
No. The pursuer has used all of his husks. He will need to flee and renew.
Why doesn't he?
Look.
Leshwi pointed at the silent atrium, a perimeter of soldiers with humans crowded behind them, peeking through, fused in the air, all staring at the two combatants. An incredible soldier who seemed immortal and impervious, completely in control.
I am death itself, defeated one! And I finally caught up to you!
And a fused who somehow looked small by comparison.